So let's talk about, you mentioned a couple of the big KOLs, right? Which are obviously, those numbers are eye popping, but you guys work with tens of thousands.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of those, I would imagine almost all of those are small, right?
Yeah.
Smaller
Yeah.
KOLs, which
Yeah.
KOL is also influencer, right? Key opinion leader.
Yep.
So talk me through kind of the tactics that you utilize
Yeah.
there. What size is your team? Like, of the 300 people, how many
Yeah.
are dedicated to it? I mean, I've heard
Yeah.
that Perfect Diary's got 100 people dedicated to influencers or
Yeah.
KOLs.
Yeah.
So like, how big is the team? What are
Yeah.
some of the tactics? Do you guys gift them? Do you run affiliate
Yeah.
programs? Is it events? Like, how does
Yeah.
that function?
Yeah, it's definitely work in progress. I mean, our team is close to 20 now that work with over 40,000 influencers, either directly or through agencies. We started, 4 years ago by trying to understand, how to pick an influencer, as you obviously, have been working on many years now. And I think what we've realized was that, there is just that every single day there are so many new influencers entering the market, and you can never keep your tab, onto them, because they're, the market's always changing. And then, the strategy, which, you've seen in probably 1,000 pitch decks of a pyramid of the macro influencer, the mid influencer, and the smaller KOLs, is not dissimilar to in China as well. The micro influencer is really where a lot of authenticity is found. And what I found in beauty is that, beauty is very much segmented across products categories. So, someone who talks very strongly about a toner may not talk about a moisturizer. So, I think what we've done at SuperOrdinary is collected a lot of information about, who's talking about what, what's the return on investment from that influencer, and how those influencers change over time too. So we've managed to collect a lot of information. So when we do work with a brand, what happens is we have 24 brands in China that we work with, and I'll influence a team of 20 people, get RFPs every single day from each one of our brand leaders, and they would go over and say, "Hey, Connor, I'm launching this new vitamin C serum, and I need to have a strategy that will allow us to grow this brand to X over the next 6 months." So our team will go out and really think about this carefully, about what's the strategy, how many influencers we'll be using. It's a pay-per-play society, so there's no free seeding programs. So unfortunately, it is very expensive, and that those prices change daily. And the commissions that these influencers ask for are very aggressive too. So it's not uncommon that they will ask for, 30-40% of revenue which really makes it challenging. But these influencers, if they convert, it's definitely worth it. So I think, live streaming, in my view, for example, and I put that into the same bucket because it's creating awareness. I mean, what you're trying to do is, think carefully about what the kind of growth you're looking for in your brand, and then is that growth sustainable? If you do $10 million in year one, is it realistic that you do 20 million in year two? Because brands can't grow without strong brand marketing behind it, so that people can feel it, that connection with that brand. So it's almost better to take the slow approach sometimes in a market like China, because that will create much more longevity. Because if you want big growth, you be prepared that you have to invest very, very heavily behind the brand. It's not uncommon that we're spending 30-40% in marketing. You can see Perfect Diary spending north of 70% on marketing dollars. So it's
absolutely insane.
It's insane. It is insane. And
where there's only so much,
yeah.
In the
I call it a high stakes poker table, where you sit around a poker table and everyone's playing, Texas Hold'em. Okay, I'll take you out. No, I'll take you out. But it's exciting at the same time.
Absolutely. What do you think? You mean you talked about this kind of pay for play, and and I've heard that before, right? That there's just this expectation. It's different culturally. Like any work that you do together, there's expected to be some kind of compensation involved, regardless of. So, what are some of the other kind of big misconceptions about that brands come in with and say, "Hey, this is how I did it," but KOLs actually don't operate that way in China. What have you learned about that specifically?
I think, I mean, first of all, the biggest misconception is, when a brand comes to me and says, oh, I do this much money in revenue in the US with 300 million people, and and China's 1.5 billion, the total addressable market's that much bigger, so I should be doing this. I mean, that's the biggest misconception. But I would say that working with KOLs in China requires a lot more education, because I think the KOLs, you send them products. Remember, they don't know diddly about your brand in the US. They have no access to Instagram. They have no Facebook. They're getting this product that comes into their hand, and they're just like, well, what do I do with it? And why is it so special? And they don't know if it could be, the best face cream in the world, or it could be just something that's just been concocted recently. So I think education it takes a long time. And I think what we've found is that the messaging has to make sense to them so that they can repeat it time and time and again. Because you hear it once, you hear it twice, you hear it 3 times. That's the kind of... so we have to work very carefully about creating those taglines, the hashtags, the naming conventions of your product, so that it resonates with the local consumer. So I guess that's what SuperOrdinary really focuses on, making sure that when we do deliver it to that KOL, they do know exactly the 3 bullets that they have to say. So unless you and that's some of the things we do, is make sure that unless you got to tell them how to take their photo shot, what to say, when to say it, and when to post, and if they do all those things, do they get paid? So you've got to really it's much more hand holding, I would say, in that market.